Now that we have an idea what we want to talk about, supporting material for your speech can come from a variety of sources, including personal knowledge and experience, the internet, online databases, and traditional library holdings. You can find a lot of things on the internet, but as you've heard before, you need to be careful what you find on the internet. Not everything is really logical. A lot of things on the internet are opinions. So you can look at online databases. These are all over the internet as well. And our ACTC library has databases that you can use those. You can go on our website and go to EBSCO, and you can look at databases, and these are for free. These are often charged by public libraries. They charge customers money for that. But since you're a student, you can get all of these databases for free. But again, there are some that's offered online, and they're good databases. You can use Citation Managers. These managers are ways that you can cite the source that you're getting them from. This is why we like to use APA or MLA. It's a pattern, and it shows the audience and it shows the reader or the listener where you got that information from. That you just didn't get it from Joe's website, online. You got it from a book, and here's the author, and here's the name of the author. That's what makes this citation so good. It puts everybody on an equal bearing.
Illustrations are very important as it relates to our speech. The illustrations that we give could be really good stories. Illustrations could also be pictures. If you're doing a PowerPoint in a speech, you could use some pictures. But one thing I want to underscore, if you're using a PowerPoint in a speech, for example, if you're giving a speech at a Kiwanis Club and you're going to use a PowerPoint, remember the PowerPoint is just an aid. The PowerPoint is not your speech. What you want to avoid doing is you want to avoid reading the PowerPoint. If you read everything that's on the PowerPoint, then why does that group need you to be there? They could just look and read the PowerPoint themselves. That PowerPoint is just to give a sentence or two, and then it's your job to explain. So that gets back to our explanations, our verbal communication. And this is where good stories and our illustrations can come into play.
An illustration is a story that provides an example of an idea, issue, or problem a speaker is wanting to discuss. There are brief illustrations and extended illustrations. A brief illustration is only one sentence or two. For example, you could say, the birth of a child, the loss of a loved one, an unexpected diagnosis. The physician's life is defined not by one, but by hundreds of these moments. That's a brief illustration, and that sounds like a good introduction. Then you would lay out your speech. And of course, an extended illustration would be a longer story, maybe a paragraph, but no more than a couple paragraphs. Then you can use personal examples from your experience or something that happened in your life. The next is hypothetical. A hypothetical example is an example that might happen, but has not actually occurred. Now here's the thing with hypothetical, and this is important. If you're going to use a hypothetical example, you have to tell the audience this is hypothetical. You could say, in a hypothetical situation, let's say, for example, that, and then you go into your example. We've talked about the ethics of a speech. So as a good speaker, you want to be ethical, and you don't want to make up an example. You want to tell the audience this is real, this happened, here's the person it happened to, or it happened to me, or this is just hypothetical. The same thing can be said with analogies. An analogy is when you're going to compare a couple of things. So you can have a figurative analogy where you're actually comparing a couple things, but they don't really exist. They could be ideas. Or a figurative analogy. This is where you're comparing two things that are actually very similar. You could compare two types of cereal or two types of cars. Now it's time to organize and outline our speech. We've talked about the logos, pathos, and ethos before. Pathos is the emotion, and ethos is the ethical implications of the speaker and our speech. And now it's logos. This is the logic that we're going to use for our material and supporting material, but also the logic of having our speech organized. We don't want the speech to be random, but be all over the place. We want there to be steps. We can use primacy or recency. Primacy is the arrangement of ideas from the most important up front to the least important. And then recency, we start off with the least important and we end with the most important. And it's up to you whichever way you want to do it. We can also use chronological organization. This is where we organize the speech in a time of sequence. If you're going to talk about dates, make sure the dates are in sequence. You don't want to go from 1980 to 1970 to 1920 to 1999 to 2003. You want there to be some type of pattern that the audience can follow. Now for the body of our material, we're going to use some supporting material and some facts. We can use soft evidence and hard evidence. Soft evidence is the supporting material based mainly on an opinion or inference. It includes hypothetical illustrations, descriptions, and explanations. Now, hard evidence is factual examples and statistics. You can use a mixture of these, a mixture of both soft and hard evidence. Your facts is going to come from the hard evidence, and then you can use your opinions to back up the hard evidence, or you can use soft evidence and have the hard evidence back up your opinions. It's up to you whichever way you want to organize it, but make sure it's organized in a logical manner. Transitions are a verbal or nonverbal signal indicating the speaker has finished discussing one idea and is moving to another idea. Verbally, you can do this in a few ways. You can say, well, in addition to, or you could also say, now not only, or maybe in other words, or you could even say, in summary, now I would like, that gives the audience an idea of where you're going. And you can also do this non-verbally. You can maybe do this with your hands. You can do this with a long pause. And you can combine them. After you have one idea, you can have a pause and then look up at the audience and then say, maybe with your hand, your forefinger pointed out, and say, in addition to, and that lets the audience know you're going from one bullet point to the next bullet point.